Jesus had finished all these sayings, he said unto his disciples, Ye know that after 2 days is the Passover, and then the Son of Man is betrayed to be crucified. Then assembled together the chief priests and the scribes and elders of the people unto the palace of the high priest, who was called Caiaphas, and consulted that they might take Jesus by subtlety and kill him. But they said, Not on the feast day, lest there be an uproar among the people. Now when Jesus was in Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, there came unto him a woman having an alabaster box of very precious ointment, and poured it on his head as he sat in the house. But when some saw this, they had indignation, saying, Unto what purpose is this waste? For this ointment might have been sold for much, and given to the poor. When they had said this, Jesus understood them, and he said unto them, Why trouble ye the woman? For she hath wrought a good work upon me. For ye have the poor always with you, but me you have not always. For she hath poured this ointment on my body for my burial. And in this thing that she hath done, she shall be blessed. For verily I unto you, wheresoever this shall be preached in the whole world, this thing that this woman hath done shall also be told for a memorial of her. Then one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot, went unto the chief priests and said, What will ye give me, and I will deliver him unto you? And they covenanted with him for 30 pieces of silver, and from that time he sought opportunity to betray Jesus. Now on the first day of the feast of unleavened bread, the disciples came unto Jesus, saying unto him, Where wilt thou that we prepare for thee to eat the Passover? And he said, Go into the city to such a man, and say unto him, The master saith, My time is at hand. I will keep the Passover at thy house with my disciples. And the disciples did as Jesus appointed them, and they made ready the Passover. Now when the evening was come, he sat down with the 12. And as they did eat, he said, Verily I say unto you, that one of you shall betray me. And they were exceedingly sorrowful, and began every one of them to say unto him, Lord, is it I? And he answered and said, He that dippeth his hand with me in the dish, the same shall betray me. But the Son of Man goeth as it is written of him, but woe unto that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It had been good for that man if he had not been born. Then Judas, who betrayed him, answered and said, Master, is it I? He said unto him, Thou hast said. And as they were eating, Jesus took bread and brake it, and blessed it, and gave to his disciples, and said, Take, eat. This is in remembrance of my body, which I give a ransom for you. And he took the cup, and gave thanks, and gave it to them, saying, Drink ye all of it. For this is in remembrance of my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for as many as shall believe in my name for the remission of their sins.
And I give unto you a commandment, that ye shall observe to do the things which ye have seen me do, and bear record of me even unto the end. But I say unto you, I will not drink henceforth of this fruit of the vine until that day when I come and drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. And when they had sung a hymn, they went out into the Mount of Olives. Then said Jesus unto them, All ye shall be offended because of me this night, for it is written, I will smite the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock shall be scattered abroad. But after I am risen again, I will go before you into Galilee. Peter answered and said unto him, Though all men shall be offended because of thee, I will never be offended. Jesus said unto him, Verily I say unto thee, that this night before the cock crow, thou shalt deny me thrice. Peter said unto him, Though I should die with thee, yet will I not deny thee. Likewise also said all the disciples. Then cometh Jesus with them unto a place called Gethsemane, and said unto the disciples, Sit ye here while I go yonder and pray. And he took with them Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, and began to be sorrowful and very heavy. Then said he unto them, My soul is exceeding sorrowful, even unto death. Tarry ye here and watch with me. And he went a little further and fell on his face and prayed, saying, O Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt. And he cometh unto the disciples, and findeth them asleep, and said unto Peter, What, could ye not watch with me for 1 hour? Watch and pray that ye enter not into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. He went away again the second time and prayed, saying, O my Father, if this cup may not pass away from me, except I drink it, thy will be done. And he came and found them asleep again, for their eyes were heavy. And he left them and went away again, and prayed the third time, saying the same words. Then cometh he to his disciples, and saith unto them, Sleep on now, and take rest. Behold, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. And after they had slept, he said unto them, Arise, and let us be going. Behold, he is at hand that doth betray me. And while he spake, lo, Judas, one of the 12, came, and with him a great multitude with swords and staffs from the chief priests and elders of the people. Now he that betrayed him gave them a sign, saying, Whomever I shall kiss, that same is he. Hold him fast. And forthwith he came to Jesus and said, Hail, Master, and kissed him. And Jesus said unto him, Judas, wherefore art thou come to betray me with a kiss? Then came they and laid hands on Jesus and took him. And behold, one of them which were with Jesus stretched out his hand and drew his sword, and struck a servant of the high priest, and smote off his ear. Then said Jesus unto him, Put up again thy sword into its place, for all they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. Thinkest thou that I cannot now pray to my Father, and he shall presently give me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then shall the scriptures be fulfilled, that thus it must be?
I know this is about the betrayal of Judas, but I figured that if we had the whole picture of what happened that day, that we get a better understanding of what went on. This was during the time of the Passover, and this event that started here, the main event that was here, is the Last Supper, and the things that preceded that and was after that. When we speak betrayal, there's other times in the Bible that we hear about betrayal. There was Jacob and Esau, when Jacob's mother, Rebekah, betrayed her own son. He betrayed Esau by telling Jacob how to get the blessing from his father. There was also Samson and Delilah, where Samson told Delilah what the secret of his strength was, that she wouldn't tell the Philistines, and they took him. But even with all these, in each one of these instances, God had a plan for his will to be carried out through that deceitfulness. And the main one that we hear about, those first two, was done in a way to where the first one with Jacob and Esau, that wasn't unto death. The second one was unto death. But the third one was the mandatory reason why Christ came here for us, and that was to be a sacrifice for our sins. And Judas carried this out and betrayed him. Jesus had 12 disciples, and he chose them somewhat in order of what their relationship with him was going to be. The first was Peter, James, and John, Philip, and on down. The last one that he chose was Judas Iscariot. All of these other disciples we hear about their first name. Peter had two names, Simon, and Jesus changed his name to Peter, which was still a first name, but Judas is one that we hear about. It has a first and his last name. It was Judas Iscariot. And by me reading this, I was blessed to find out that I was thinking that all of Jesus' disciples was Hebrews, were Jews. But there was one named Simon, another Simon. He was a Canaanite. Canaanites weren't Jews. The Jews went into the land and took the land from the Canaanites. But there was one Canaanite disciple with Jesus during this time. But that's just a little bit of trivia that I thought I'd throw in there. But thank God for notes. We know that Peter, James, and John, they were what? What was their professions? They were fishermen. But it doesn't mention what Judas' profession was. But during his time following Jesus and what have you, he was in charge of, anybody know in specific what Judas was in charge of?
Treasure.
He was a treasurer. He was in charge of the disciples' money. As they read about the woman with the alabaster box that came and anointed Christ. And Judas spoke out, saying, like, why are you wasting this oil when we could go and sell it and give the proceeds to the poor? Now, Christ was always making sure that the poor around him had everything that they needed. He even fed 1,000 or 4,000 people with the fishes and the bread. So I don't think Judas's intent really was to sell it and give that money to the poor. Since he had in his possession and his authority, no matter how much money was in there, wouldn't nobody really know except for who? Yeah. Himself. So that he would have control over that. So this was, we would call that a stronghold that he had from the world while he was following Jesus. One of his bad habits that he carried along with him through this thing. That he might have been fighting it, you know, what have you, but still again, by it being there, that still opened up a door that Satan could have access to his life. During the time that we heard about the Garden of Gethsemane, when Christ went in there and prayed, he asked his disciples to come and pray with him, well, Peter, James, and John actually, so that they wouldn't be tempted by Satan. Now, Satan was there to tempt them. Satan had already tried to tempt Christ. No, he tried to tempt Christ during the time that he was doing his fasting. Okay? And then again,